Usually, when someone objects to my beliefs, I raise my nose into the air and realize that the wind is once more coming from the garbage dump. Considering the source, I ignore it as irrelevant until the wind shifts to a more favorable direction. Recently, however, 2 letters to the editor challenged me to look at a few important facts regarding abortion. I accept your challenge. The most critical issue surrounding abortion is the only issue that the pro-murder group never, ever, ever brings up. It is the single question that must define everyone's belief and opinion regarding abortion. Liberals don't want to talk about this, so they cloud the water with anything and everything else. They avoid the critical question because they know that the answer will leave them without a defense. Suppose that you rush your child to the emergency room. Suppose that he is unconscious for some reason. The physician's first priority will be to make sure that the basic life-sustaining functions are present. The ABCs of first aid are airway, breathing, and circulation. The doctor will begin by checking to see that these basic systems are up and running. If they are in place, the child will be assumed to be alive. In some cases, other tests might be necessary, like checking for a reaction to pain or light. Exactly how many of these indications of life must be present before the child is considered to be alive? Is one enough? Or shall the child be considered dead unless all are present together? Imagine the outrage if a doctor were to complete an initial exam and then report, "Your child has a pulse. He reacts normally to pain and light. However, because he was not breathing, we called the morgue." If even one of these signs of life is present, we will demand that every resource be used to save the child. Why does the same standard not apply to unborn children? Does it seem reasonable that a sign of life is applicable unless and until we don't want it to be? Does it seem right that we can arbitrarily decide when it applies and when it does not? Even in the pro-murder camp, you are divided amongst yourselves. You can't find the answer. Stand just inside of a state line. Look around. Your baby is considered to be a living human being. Take one step in the right direction, and your baby is nothing more than a nuisance, as easily removed as a wart. Step back, and an abortion will be considered murder. Step forward, and evil people will reward you for exercising your evil right to choose. The simple truth is that only God knows the answer to that question. Any attempt we make to find an answer will be an arbitrary, random, politically motivated, and greed-induced attempt to dehumanize that which our instincts tell us is our child. Can you think of any other examples where people who were slightly different have been killed or abused because they were considered to be less than human? Today, Congolese militiamen hunt and kill pygmy people for bushmeat and for their magical powers. What about ethnic cleansing in Burma? What about the killing fields of Cambodia? What about Libya, Iraq, China, Russia, Jews, gypsies? We think that here in America we are above this. Think again. Have you forgotten slavery, where all were slaves, and where women doubled as sex slaves? Have you forgotten the post-Civil War South, where all men were free, except the black man, who was still considered to be less than human? Have you considered the interned Japanese, whose only crime was that somehow he was less than the rest of us? Have you considered the Mormons who built cities only to be killed, raped, arrested, and driven from Kirtland, Ohio, Independence, Missouri, Far West, Haun's Mill, and Nauvoo? Have you forgotten the American Indian, driven from their homes, disarmed, murdered with abandon, and caged like animals? If you need more, I can deliver. The simplest and cleanest way to justify an atrocity is to label the victim as something less than human. To our shame, abortion is darker and more evil than all of these combined. And why? Because we kill our own offspring. We do so while making random, unscientific, and unprovable assumptions to hide our guilt and cover our sin. Until we are willing to apply a common standard that defines life and death in all human beings, and then use that standard to absolutely prove that unborn children are dead, we must not take this discussion further. To do less is to live in a moral and spiritual vacuum. Only the most depraved and selfish of individuals will consider stepping into this uncertainty when so much is at stake. The obligation is upon us to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we are doing right. But convenience, irresponsibility, and godlessness have made this step into darkness a simple choice among the least of us. There is no point in continuing this conversation until the question of living or dead can be precisely resolved. However, the buckets used to carry the ideas that abortion is a grand thing are so full of holes that they cannot carry eggs, let alone water. Holey buckets represents a unique kind of flawed liberal thinking that simply must be exposed. The common moth is the best example of Holey bucket thinking. A moth will circle a flame, drawing ever nearer, fully confident that the flame will be the ultimate reward. The fact that he has witnessed countless brothers and sisters dive to a fiery death does little to persuade him that his attempt will not end in glory. Moths blindly and continuously repeat the same actions and remain foolishly hopeful that they will see a different result. That is why I believe all moths are liberals. The current moth mindset began to gather steam and momentum in the 60s. Free love was on everyone's lips. As good as the theory sounded, it just brought more problems. Instead of fixing the problem, we introduced free condoms, and the problem grew. Throw in free contraceptives, free pregnancy tests, free abortions, free education, free. Each solution did nothing to correct the problem. Instead, the problem grew. Now, those who challenged me asked for more of the same. More free contraception, more free education, more free abortions, more free health care, more. Like moths before them, they are certain that just a little bit more of the same stupid thing will yield a different result. While moths dive, teen pregnancies increase. Single-parent families increase. Disconnected and angry children increase. Violence and decay increase. Government dependence and government debt increase. One by one, moths dive into the flame of national destruction. Holey buckets. It has been suggested that we need a bill to provide free health care for all women with unintended pregnancies. As I have often stated, I will only support a law that provides equal protections for all citizens. So if we write this bill, maybe we could name it the "I was stupid and selfish and irresponsible, and now I want someone else to carry me" bill. The Senate is full of Holey buckets who will gladly sponsor this for you. But remember, it must protect all equally. So, if I run over 3 kindergartners because I was texting while driving drunk in a school zone, the government must step up and pay my legal fees. And if I am ultimately convicted to, say, 10 years, I will only serve 1 day. Then it shall be the government's responsibility to find 3,649 innocent people who will each do a day in my behalf. Holey buckets. It has been suggested that the situation we have now is far better than before Roe v. Wade. It has been pointed out that before this became a law, some women died as a result of botched illegal abortions. Moths think that murder can be sanitized and legalized and legitimized. Moths do not believe that murder should be ugly, nor do they believe that it should be expensive and risky for those who commit it. Moths have no way of satisfying my first question, and yet they continue to defend that which is undefendable. Before Roe v. Wade, only a few were murderers. Now, mass murder and butchery is a nationally sponsored project. Together, we are all guilty. I call that a step into the flame. Holey buckets. Moths like the idea that pornography is in every home and on every phone. The moth is not concerned that the stars of every sitcom are immoral or homosexual. I know this because the moth never speaks against it. The moth gladly teaches our sons and daughters to give into their carnal and animal drives. The moth teaches that to do so is normal and okay. The moth leads and destroys our children and then hopes to save them from moth-like behavior by enacting another useless program. These children, like moths before them, continually dive down, continue to choose poorly, always flying lower, and always losing in the end. Holy buckets. God fashioned us a little bit above the animals and a little bit below himself. This allows us to consider both and choose. Instead of diving ever lower, we can be like the eagle, soaring higher and higher, ever closer to the light. We can choose to reach up, drawing nearer to the Master. We can know him, and as much as is possible, we can be like him. We can teach our children that they are literally the sons and daughters of a living, loving Father in heaven. We can teach them that inside of their heart is a light, a spark of divinity. We can teach our daughters that they are beautiful and precious in our sight and in the sight of God. We can teach our sons that they are strong and good and noble. We can teach them that they have a sacred duty and an obligation to protect the virtue and the reputation of all girls and all women. We can teach our sons and daughters that the gift of procreation is precious and beautiful and pleasing before God when used correctly. We can help them understand that God has a sure plan for their happiness, lasting through this life and beyond. We can help them understand that this plan includes a marriage between one man and one woman. We can teach them that they will be freer and happier if they develop an unmovable commitment to God. Finally, we can help them understand that prophets throughout the ages have spoke of this time when men will call good evil and evil good. We can help them understand the challenges of this day. We can help them learn to overcome the world. We can help them become eagles.